my name is Lani Aisida, Sorkin. Just so you know, first of OT, off tangent. I think Aaron Sorkin should be the template for a lot of Nigerian writers because I think that most of the things that we do are drama. As people say, Roman Palo and all of those things. Aaron Sorkin, I think, is the king of dialogue. So if your dialogue is like, strong, a lot of people might forget the limitations of what they are watching, right? So anyway, this is the one thing that you people cannot afford to forget during this class, and take it with you wherever you go, and talk about my brilliance. Next slide. So basically, I came up with the law, Lani Aisida's law of the opening scene. Lani Aisida's law of the opening scene states that your opening scene has to be gang. Love it. It's simple, right? But it's Nigerianized because this is us. So in general, I'll say there are 3 types of opening scenes. So imagine like a world that you created. You want the audience to understand what the world is about and everything. So they then layer it with brilliant images, or they just use text sometimes to establish the world, you know. And in general, right, even at some points in the film, if it's not the opening scene, there's usually the exposition scene where you just need to pass across information. There are tricks to it to ensure that it's engaging. One of the tricks is that has anybody seen? One of the tricks is that you make someone in the story new to that world, right? So for instance, in Scandal, has anybody seen Scandal? Right? In Scandal, there is a person that is joining Olivia Pope's team. So basically, she's asking Olivia Pope and people, oh, how do you do this? How do you do that? So when Olivia Pope is explaining to the character, she's actually giving exposition to the audience. So that's a trick in how to keep it within story and story perspective. So that's more or less an exposition scene. When the audience comes into the cinema hall, or however you're presenting, they come with their biases and what they know. So, and this is why the opening scene is very important, right? When they engage with your content, it's like a tip-tap between what you're presenting to them and what they know. So for instance, like King of Boys, they are using what we know that, I can't remember, say Pasuma is performing. So in your mind, it's not the story that is telling you that this is a big artist. It's you, the audience, that knows that, this is a big artist. A couple of times during your decks, they'll ask you, who is the audience? Because how does the audience interpret the things that they are seeing on screen? So if a foreign person is watching that, they don't know the person, to them it's just, they might as well have called someone off the streets. But us that we were the core audience, I believe, we know that this and this. And then dramatic scenes, which is the next one, is what would you say is a dramatic scene? Basically, dramatic scene is what a film is made up of primarily. So it's a lot of scenes with conflict. So if you've seen Say Who Die, it starts with conflicts, right? It starts with two people arguing. What's the scene about? Is someone breaking up with someone, like, I'm Jack Wine, let's end the relationship. And then it's conflict. So you go bang straight into it, right? So those are the 3 kinds of scenes. So those are the 3 ways you need to, that we are speaking of, right? But obviously, because it's the beginning of the film, one of the things is that a film, more times than not, is about a character that you want people to follow for the next 90 minutes. If it's a series, it's that you want them to follow for the next 6 episodes, 10 episodes, 260 episodes, right? So basically, how do you introduce character? The opening scene is a contract, right? That's how I see it, because it's basically saying, there are a couple of things that it does, but it's basically saying, next slide, it's basically saying that this person has a lot to do with their lives. Why should they commit to 90 minutes of their lives that they will never get back and give it to you? The opening scene is basically you saying, this is why you should sign in blood with me, right? And your job is to then deliver on that promise, right? Because one of the things is that, why should I keep watching? So you have to hook them. These are the things that the opening scene has to do. It has to hook them. It has to set up what the tone or genre of the film is, or the project is. It has to show us who it is about and why we should care. What is wrong or what is at stake? What idea of truth will this explore? Where and when am I? Story world, right? So we'll watch a couple of opening scenes here, and we'll establish how some of these things come to play. But these are the things that we should bear in mind. I don't know that we should just think like, oh, opening scene is just, oh, we have 15 minutes to set up, especially in this day and age where people start watching something on Netflix, and before 2 minutes, 5 minutes, they're like, it's not giving. In the world of Gen Zs, it's not giving, and then they just slip to the next thing, right? So basically, by the time you set up an image, and it happens throughout the film, right? The time you set up an image or a set of scenes or a scene, a couple of dialogue, what you're thinking about is the audience is thinking, oh, I think I'm going to know what's going to happen next, right? If they know what is going to happen next enough times, they probably will switch channel, right? But if you're serving and they don't know where you're going to serve it to, they're like, oh, I'm engaged. It's mentally engaging, right? So like I said, they come with their own biases, and then you engage them into like, this is the world, or this is the Lagos that we know as it is, and this is the Lagos you are presenting to them. So sometimes you also use their own biases. You understand what their biases are, and then you use it as tools and weapon, or arsenal. I hate that word, but in your for your storytelling. Opening scene of phases. So it's a party, and this guy who is good with women turns to the girl next to him and is like, I'm not a guitarist or something. I'm not a musician, but I can play your G string. And she finds it fascinating, and she goes into the room with him, right? And then his friend, who is awkward, is like, so that's what ladies want to hear. And he's like, oh, I'm not a guitarist. And turns to the girl next to him. Oh, I'm not a guitarist. I like to play a G string. And then she pours the drink on him, and then we open. So if we go back to what the things in opening scene is meant to do, is that it sort of sets the tone of the kind of show we're going to watch, right? So these are the kind of lines that would be delivered. That's the contract. That's what I'm putting on paper as a contract between me and the audience. My job is to deliver, right? So it sets the world and everything that it's about. This young people, it's about red cups, do you understand, alcohol. It's about all of this unreserved commentary. It's about an awkward something-year-old virgin guy, because, we normally talk about virgins from a girl's perspective. This show is about a guy virgin, right? And so basically, if you're now thinking, would I like to watch this kind of show? Would I like to follow this kind of character for 10 episodes, 5 episodes, right? So that's that. Oga Pastor, do you remember the opening of Oga Pastor? Oga Pastor, basically, Pastor comes on stage and says, I can't be your pastor. He's a popular pastor and says, I can't be your pastor anymore because I've been having an affair, or I've been sleeping with a woman that is not my wife. And the whole church goes into disarray, right? So now if you think about it, what are the biases that I'm using, or that we use, or I used about the audience? In the Nigerian context, a pastor wouldn't go on the altar and say that. So the audience is already like, wait, what? That's impossible. Why would a pastor say that? I've caught them, hopefully, I've caught their attention, right? So that's what I mean by we're using what the audience knows to then tip-tap with them and grab their attention, right? And because they know nothing about the world I'm creating yet, but I'm like, how can I get them real quick, right? And then what we then do is we then go back and say 11 days before, because we want to know how did we get to the point where a man will go on stage saying, I'm sleeping with my da-da-da. So obviously for the first 3 episodes, we are now trying to review who is the person he's sleeping with. So we play with, the choir leader, we play with this person, that person, and do you understand? So we've presented a dramatic question. Can he hook them for the whole season? And can he hook them for the first 3 episodes? Bang. That's basically what you're trying to do. Newsroom, again, we'll probably play it, but I would say this. A couple of people have seen this. I've played this scene for a couple of people, and they're like, they've never seen Newsroom. And then when I play for them, they're like, I've watched this clip on social media, but I did not know it was from a TV show. I thought it was real. Has anybody by any chance seen a clip where like 4 people are on a panel in some university in America, and then one girl comes on stage and says, why is America the greatest country in the world? Who said yes? You've seen it. Where did you see it? So, but do you know? Did you know it was from a TV show? Yes. So I can continue my narrative. At least there's one person that always doesn't know that it's from a TV show. I'll play the clip here, But what he's done is, we hear that question. We might not hear the question, but we hear that phrase a lot of the times. America is the greatest country in the world. Do you understand? So it's just a phrase that we hear. So bang, right on as you put on your laptop or TV or however you watch Newsroom, they are presenting you with this question. In your mind, you're already thinking, why do I believe that America is the greatest country in the world? And then people are answering the questions on the panel. And then, because I can't say how brilliantly the dialogue in that scene is. The opening scene is about this guy walking on the streets, and then someone on this quiet streets in America, and then someone just captures him and puts him in the car, right? So it's almost like that thing I said where you bring something from the climax and put it. But what I find interesting about this is that they didn't just bring someone, so basically the person that they captured is not the protagonist. But in my mind, I like to think, when I'm watching stuff and they do that, I like to think, what would this series would have been like if they cut that scene out, right? And then just started from the slower pacing part of the project, right? And then, because from this next scene is where they now introduce the lead character and his girlfriend going on a trip, interracial relationship and all of that, right? And I'm like, would I have had the same energy? But if it's done well enough, sometimes you even forget the opening scene and you just follow the story. And by the time they do a recall to that opening scene, you're like, bang, So with this case, the person that they captured, we had no time with the story. But then why I thought it was brilliant is that when they got to the house, there was that guy that he was like, I'm happy you're here. You're one of us. So that was the guy they captured. But without showing us it just shows us how they recruit people into their community, because they didn't want to recruit the lead character that way. Do you understand? So they did it once, but then tied it into someone within the story so that it doesn't just feel like hand of God and everything. Script writing is a lot of brain work, right? And I thought it was just very brilliant. So it's all these things, right? You have to be intentional and aware that people have things they are doing with their time, right? And that, has anybody heard of second screen viewing, right? So there's this thing in Hollywood now, which is second screen viewing, and they are expecting writers to write accordingly, is that consumer behavior now is that people are watching your film, but they are probably doing something else as well, right? So basically, you find out that a lot of writing is that at several points, even in America now, is that they keep trying to continue explaining the plot, even though they've explained it before, explaining again somewhere because, they're like, people might not have gotten it because they were distracted, right? But it's also, how do I hook them, right? And say that in 90 minutes. But everybody understands that it's really, really hard now. Do you understand? So when you look at this, so I'm talking about opening scenes. Obviously, if you look at the core of what happened in the herd, we then explored the theme itself is something that the audience already knows about. So I'm not even presenting, it's not through the film I'm fully presenting. So I'm like, okay, Lani, there's some things you don't have to write into the script because the audience already knows it. Now I'm going to play tennis with them, right? Tip tap, tip tap, tip tap. And let's see who is Nadal, let's see who is Federer. Do you get it? If you don't get it, don't forget about it. So the honest truth is that the art of screenwriting or storytelling, in my opinion, is peeling an onion, knowing how and when to peel it. It's layers, right? So I like to think of it from a Bible concept of, I like the phrase for series that says created by, right? And it sort of makes me think of being the God of the world I'm creating. I know everything from the beginning. I know the end from the beginning, but what do I want to present first? What do I want to present that will hook them? So that's just whatever situation is that the craft of the person involved and knowing what onions, how to peel the onion. Newsroom, right? Again, it's just, they're in a room, but it's the dialogue. In my mind, to me, like I'm thinking like, who is that girl or who is that lady behind that is giving him answers? Why is the person's face changing, right? Why is he so distant, right? Why is he, why did they bring him here? And why is his opinion so important, right? But I know that he's someone that is good with words, right? I know that he's going to, eventually we find out that, oh, he's a news anchor, and I'm like, oh, okay, that answers a question. But the whole thing is about the newsroom, as in basically how they present the news. So he's struggling with, you can see that he's struggling with the ideals of America. So by the time I start watching the show, and I see someone that has to present the news every day in a certain way, and it's going to be in conflict with his inner feelings and his morals. Do you understand? So I'm like, oh, the contract they're asking me to sign is that, do you want to go on that journey with this person? Is this person interesting enough for you to go on that journey with? Right? Because at the end of the day, the newsroom is sort of like a confined space, more or less one location that they're asking you to watch for X and X amount of seasons, right? But I'm like, you know what, you guys have sold me up until the pilot. If the pilot is good, pilot being the first episode, then I will go and continue watching the rest, okay? So rather than watch, rather than watch more scenes, which I have, I think I've explained some of it. Godfather, maybe I should have played Godfather, but we'll just talk about it. Before I started doing this, my deep dive into opening scenes, I used to think that Godfather started with the opening scene of, it was a spectacle opening scene. Has anybody seen Godfather? American, yeah, about Italians, yes, but American, yeah. So basically, the opening scene, again, you can watch this. These things are on YouTube, right? So it's not like it's some archive that you can't get access to. If you're interested enough, you go watch it. So the opening scene, and I think from a director's point of view as well, is quite interesting because it's almost like tight on this guy. And then the first thing you hear is that, oh, I believe in America, right? So they're setting up the world with dialogue. That's why I find it interesting. It's in a confined space, but with dialogue, they're setting up the world. I believe in America, but in deep Italian accent, right? And then he starts talking about the great things about America. And then he presents, so it's almost like an arc. That dialogue is an arc in itself. It's a story in itself. And then he presents the case that, oh, his daughter was violated. And then they start pulling out the camera bit by bit, right? And then he starts talking about, oh, how he wants vengeance, as in he wants revenge and everything. And then we reveal that he is stroking a cat, innocently, and then, as in the person he's talking is stroking a cat, and then that's who we now reveal that he's talking to. So he's talking to some sort of mafia boss, right? And then the mafia boss is like, why didn't you go to the police, right? And then, so then they now start their own form of tennis, tip-tap dialogue, right? Conflict. You want me to inflict harm on the person that did this to your daughter. Why didn't you go? You say you believe in America so much. Why didn't you go to the institution, the police? And it's like this and this and this. He wants this. And then he says, okay, but now you want my arm to be stretched to this guy. But what about when I told you to pay taxes to me? You were complaining. You think I didn't know what you said to Lagbaja, this, and there's no Lagbaja in Italy, but you get what I mean. What you said to this person and that person and that person, right? And then after that, we now go to the party, the Italian, as in it's a wedding, right? So what they've done in my mind is almost like the inverse of King of Boys, right? Whichever one, obviously Godfather came first. So it's the inverse. With King of Boys, you see a bit of the world, and then you go into the inner rooms. With this one, they started with the inner rooms, and then they go into the world. But by the time you are in the party, you already have an idea of who this guy is. So even you're not just watching with ordinary eyes. Sorry, you're not watching with ordinary eyes, because even you know that this guy is a boss. He presents as, oh, this amiable guy, but there's something more. So you are understanding the subtext. So when he meets his son, and the next thing you see this guy, I think Michael Corleone was in military uniform in that scene, his son. You're like, oh, there's military here as well. Do you understand? And you're just trying to, so basically they present you with this information that you are now working mentally with. And it's the dramatic question that, do I want to watch more? When someone like we said, the Godfather opening scene, it's two people sitting down talking, but when the power of that dialogue is, I believe in America, but you're hearing it from an Italian accent. Do you understand? Do you understand subtext? So I personally would say, and I don't mind being proven wrong, that it's not about the challenges that there are challenges with making film in general, but I don't know that the challenges we have are what is affecting not delivering great opening scenes. Yeah? So I think that at this point, any questions, thoughts, comments? I think that at this point, we'll say thank you.